Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you happen to be in. My name is Dr. Armeda Reitzel, and I've been a professor for a gazillion years, and please don't ask me how to spell gazillion. The reason I'm really excited about doing this presentation today is to share some information that really is part and parcel of who I am as a person. I was a college student. I'm a first generation college student from way back at when. I won't mention the decade I'm from, but let's say it's historical at this point. And at that time, I didn't have a role model per se, but I ended up getting a very good mentor as a role model when I went to college. I was on scholarships, a graduate assistantship, a fellowship. That's how I had to go to school. And I want to tell you, as a student way back then, buying a textbook was a major expense. It really was challenging for me. So I'm going to have to be really honest with you. My best friend during college was the library. I spent oodles of time in the library because I could find resources there that I could check out, take home, read, bring back, and that sort of thing. And in fact, my best friends, and this will date me for sure, were the Reader's Periodical or Reader's Guide to Periodical Literature and something called a card catalog. A few of you might have read about those in history books. But I hung out at the library a lot because I could get resources there for free that I could use. The only expense is if I forgot to bring it back in time and I had to pay a fine. As a young professor, and I will admit I was very young as a professor, I got my PhD at 25. So I've been teaching for a long time. And as a young professor, three factors came into mind for me. The cost factor of a book, because I had experienced that myself as a student. Secondly, the content factor. I don't believe that one size fits all, that there needs to be variation out there. And what I was finding as a young professor going into the field, I ended up having to use textbooks that weren't quite on the mark of what I wanted to teach or how I wanted to teach. And so some of you might remember this. Does anybody remember a Kinko's packet? I use Kinko's packets for my students because it was a way I could bring different resources together. And again, I had to abide by the rules and regulations, but there was a way to bring materials together for students. And then my university had a bookstore packets that we could put together, but it was kind of a pain. It was hard to do, hard to keep up. There was still a cost factor there, but not as much in many cases. And then the third factor I wanted to think about, in addition to cost and content factor, was the third one, and that was the college student factor. I wanted to have materials that were pertinent to my students, that they would resonate with, that they would find relevant. And I think that this is really, really important. So for decades, I always did let's find the right articles, let's bring things in, let's try to make this
work. Can't hear me, muted. And
hello? Okay. So what happened is LibreText and open educational resources came online, and oh my gosh, what a difference it has made. I wanted to share with you the fact that last couple of years, I participated in the production of a LibreText textbook. It's an OER, open educational resource, titled Interpersonal Communication, Context and Connection. This is an interpersonal communication book that was put together by a whole group of us throughout the California community college system. And the focus is on the lower division interpersonal communication course. That was really wonderful to have that opportunity to work with others of similar backgrounds and interests in putting together something that was really going to be geared for our students. And throughout the textbook, we kept our target audience in mind. Our target audience, which is one of the beautiful things about LibreText, is that you can really tailor make something to your students. We kept in mind the first and second year students at community colleges and universities. So what we did is we tried to come up with current, contemporary examples, stories. We looked at the makeup of our students and the diversity, and we wanted to be sure that we were inclusive of different kinds of stories out there. So we built that into the LibreText. So it makes it's a little bit of a different kind of textbook. It's not the purely academic book. It truly is a book that a student could pick up and in many cases find some connections along the way. It's free of charge. which we really like. Our students really like that as well. And the other thing in here, the last portion, this last sentence here, as an instructor, I found this very, very important, that we can customize our own textbooks. And that gives you some say, some ownership, some more ownership of what you're able to teach. And it really makes that course come alive for your students. So as I said, I just wanted to acknowledge the two very important entities that were part of the project in developing this LibreText. It was a grant that was supported by the Academic Senate of the California Community Colleges, the Open Educational Resource Initiative, and LibreText itself. So I want to talk about three different populations. I'm going to watch my time because I'm hoping I can leave a little time at the end for some questions and comments along the way, because I'd love to hear your feedback on this. But I have already, even though this just came out in the fall of last year, 2022, I'm using it with two populations now, and I used it with one population last semester. The first student population I used my text with was the Pelican Bay Scholars Program. Pelican Bay State Prison is up in Crescent City. There is a program offered through College of the Redwoods, which is our local community college. And it's a program that's offered for the prisoners up there, where they can work on lower division courses. The LibreText, for that one, I did not use the whole LibreText. I used a specific chapter of the LibreText, and I'll tell you a little bit more why later. I just wanted to focus your attention right now to course modality. That was really different. I had to pull on my experiences as a college student and as a early instructor, because we did not have the internet. My students did not have the internet. This was the old-fashioned correspondence course. So what happened is my incarcerated inmates once a week would get a packet of materials that I had sent up to Crescent City. They were scanned. They were given hard copies of readings, of the assignments, etc. Then they would, with their own handwriting, so I had to go back to old-fashioned reading handwriting again. Handwriting on single-spaced lined paper, if you remember that. I think you can find some, again, in historical catalogs there. But they would handwrite their responses to the tasks that they were given. And again, this was something that I did for several semesters, but I was able to last semester bring in one specific chapter. The reason I brought that one in, it was not covered by the regular textbook that I used. So I wanted to try it out. So it was a good first step. The second population I'm going to talk about briefly right now is the interpersonal communication class, which is a first-year class at College of the Redwoods. It is online asynchronous. So a totally different experience that I'm having with that. There I am using the full educational resource. And the CID, the COM 130, this is a designation given by the community colleges, and it's for transfer into different university systems within the state of California, the UC system, the CSU system, etc. So these are classes that students take at the lower division level that can transfer then when they go on for their third and fourth years of college. That's a little bit about it. I'll skip over this slide for right now, but it'll be available if you're interested. I'll be posting, or I'll have a LibreText post this for everyone. The third population is Cal Poly Humboldt. Used to be Humboldt State University, now it's Cal Poly Humboldt. And I'm currently using it in my Comp 213, which is a lower division interpersonal communication class. This one's a little different in that it's online, but synchronous. And this one is actually, even though it's lower division, it's typically taken by communication majors. This semester, it seems like my class is actually half upper division students and half lower division students, even though the course is supposed to be a 200 level course. Okay, so that's kind of the overview. But I want to tell you, last week I told my students I was going to be doing a presentation. So I asked them, what do you like about the LibreText? And this is what they had to say. This was through breakout rooms, through comments to me, by emails to me, etc. They liked it that the LibreText resource was no cost. They liked it that every chapter was easy to access, no matter how they were accessing it. Some students downloaded the entire PDF, other students would go to the website to use it. But what they really liked, it was easy to access and divided into manageable sections. As an instructor, that's one of the things that I really, really love myself. And the other one, I asked them this specifically because I discovered that I could import the book into Canvas, that it came into Canvas as modules. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so user-friendly. This is wonderful. If I refer to something during our synchronous session, a student could easily look it up and supply the answer to me because it was right there online. And I just want to show you very quickly. I did the screenshot from my course, just a segment of the modules. Here are the modules, chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, just to give you a feel. That's how they appear to the students. So this is imported into my Canvas course. It was so easy to do. And I wanted to show you that. You click on one of the modules. I recently did communication climate, and each section of the textbook appears like a miracle here. It's wonderful. So if I'm referring to confirming and disconfirming climates while I'm teaching, students could easily go into that chapter.
Got it.
Was there a question? So, and also, students at Cal Poly Humboldt liked the current timely examples, the narrative shared by the authors, the inclusivity and diversity of the people represented in the visuals. We took a lot of time and effort to find royalty-free images that we could use. And I think we did a really good job in that OER to present that information. And the students really liked the acronym too. And so we, of faculty throughout the California Community College system, really thought about our students in putting this together. And that's one thing that we really liked about the Open Educational Resource experience. So very quickly, and I'm watching time, being a communication professor, I'm very cognizant of time and speaking time. I wanted to go over give you an overview of some of the assignments that I've given students. I'm going to give you one of the assignments for each of the populations. Now there's many more, but I just want to give you kind of a little touch of some of the things that I did. So the first student population were my Plug-Based Scholars Program students. So keep in mind, these are the students, it's correspondence. I have to give them a reading that they get in hard copy form, and they themselves do a write-up on it. I wanted to give my students there some say in sharing with me what they thought was important, what stood out to them. I think especially for that population, it's so important that they have some say, because this is an opportunity for them to express themselves. So I asked them for that module, the communication climate module, to highlight and analyze 3 or 4 key ideas from the article. So I presented it as an article since they didn't have the full text. I wanted them to make specific links to concepts and theories in the textbook. And you'll see the textbook I was using actually is another one that can be found on LibreText, that they make specific connections and that they share their knowledge and experiences, their observations, etc. Now, this was to be a 1.5 to 3 page, single-spaced, handwritten paper. I want to tell you the students excelled on this assignment. That our text is written a little bit differently in tone and voice from the other interpersonal textbook. And I think having a little change in terms of the feel really made them feel comfortable. I didn't tell students that I was actually one of the co-authors of that particular chapter of the book. I didn't tell anybody, but they kind of discovered it since my name is listed in that chapter. And I want to tell you, it was so cool when one of the students wrote to me saying he was so excited to see that his teacher had been one of the authors, and he went around telling all his, quote, cellies. It's the first time I've ever heard that term. So he taught me a word, his cellies, that is his cellmates, all about the fact that his teacher had helped to write this. I read so many good connections that my students are able to think about because they had that opportunity to make choices, and they were reading a text that they could better relate to. So that for me was a really good win-win situation. And I know Jennifer and Delmar are both aware of this. I contacted them last semester after I used this because a few of my students from Pelican Bay Scholars Program had contacted me and they wanted to try to get additional LibreTexts to them because they did not have resources available to them. They don't have internet. They really liked what they saw in the LibreText. And so I'm working on seeing if there's a way that we can find some funding to try to get some of the LibreText to the different prison programs, because I know there are many prison programs throughout the United States. But I wanted to share with you, this was so successful. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't expect it to be as successful as it was. Actually, the success surprised me. And so that was a good thing. So that's one assignment I did with the students in a correspondence course. The second is with College of the Redwoods. This is a local community college. Many of the students, again, are still first generation students. There's quite an age range and background in that group of students. I have a student, well, I have a few students who are actually still in high school taking the course. And I have students in their 40s and 50s who are coming back to school and taking the class. So it's quite a different population from my earlier population. So what's nice about the LibreText that I'm using, it allows for that diversity of viewpoint because there's a lot of different examples. If one story or one example doesn't necessarily resonate with a student, there's bound to be another one because we included so many because of the students within the California Community College system. One assignment that I gave my students was the write a quiz assignment. And if people are interested, I'd be happy to share the full list of instructions. I tend to give a lot of detailed instructions because I want to scaffold for my students their support. And so I have a write a quiz assignment where students write 2 multiple choice questions for the chapter that they're assigned to. So the idea here is that students are going to learn, they're going to, first of all, identify a course concept that they think is important from the chapter. They're going to define that concept, and then they're going to apply an example or scenario to explain it, and that becomes the prompt for the question. So I don't let the students simply come up with, here's a true false question, here's true and false, and they just copy and paste from the LibreText. I don't let them do that. They have to put some thought, and I've got a framework for it, because it shows me they put some deep thought into coming up with questions. And let's be honest, we've all written quiz questions, and it's not easy to write a good quiz question. So I wanted to give you an example. This is my example. Because of FERPA, I didn't want to share out a student example, but I have students follow a format in doing this. They have to say where they found the term. So I have the chapter, the section number, and then the title of the section. The concept, and so in this case, the example is intrapersonal communication. What is that? I copied and pasted from the text. Then I had come up with a scenario that would connect back to that particular concept. And then I always give 5 responses. The correct response plus 4 distractors. I know some people do 3, some people do 4. I do 5. And then the correct answer. For me, again, in a way, it's giving students a choice. They decide, they show me application. So it goes beyond just sheer regurgitation of an idea. And it gets them to think a little bit more about the material. Now, one thing that I've done this semester, and I did this because I did this assignment also in my Cal Poly Humboldt class, I give a point of extra credit to a student if I use their question on an actual quiz. So it's not required, but I do that because if they've written a really good question, and if I decide I'm going to use it, I get their permission, and then I go ahead and do that. Oh, I know I'm giving you a lot of information, but I'm really excited about this one. Cal Poly Humboldt. My students are going to be putting together after spring break, which happens to be next week. They're going to start working on their interpersonal communication e-zine project. What's an e-zine? Well, it's an electronic magazine. My students are going to create interpersonal communication magazines that focus in on topics they have chosen from our LibreText. The idea is that they're going to report on information and they're supposed to teach others about the principles and practices of effective interpersonal communication through their magazine. And I wanted to do this back in the dark ages when we still used handwriting or maybe old-fashioned typing on a typewriter, if you can imagine. But I used to have students do a scrapbook. I decided to update it and try it out. This is the first semester I'm trying it this way as an e-zine project. And yesterday, when I was talking to my students in my synchronous class about this, I shared with them that I would like them to think about their audience as an audience of people who don't know very much, if anything, about interpersonal communication. That I want them to think about, do a little audience analysis. How would you present this information to a group of people who might pick up your e-zine, read it? They'd have a good idea of what you're talking about, but they don't have the academic readings behind it. Again, it's a good way to get students to apply and think about the concepts in a different way by relating it to another audience. So I'm going to go ahead. This is a short version of what I gave the students in terms of instructions, but they're to create an e-zine featuring 6 articles of the content of at least 2 chapters. There are 12 chapters in our book. I didn't want them to try to cover everything. I wanted them to focus. So they're going to focus on 2 chapters in the book. Again, their choice. So for example, verbal communication and nonverbal communication, chapter 4 and chapter 5. They could focus in on those 2 if they wanted, or they could pick a different 2. Then they have to design a magazine cover for their e-zine. And again, this is a way in a visual, a different type of learning strategy to get students to think about the content in the course. And then also to create a table of contents page featuring a relevant image or meme and a listing of the articles in the e-zine. My students are excited about this. They really are. And this is something they're going to be working on after spring break. What I created here is I wanted to show you the example that I shared with my students yesterday. I created this magazine cover using something called Canva. That's C-A-N-V-A. So don't put the S. My computer immediately always puts an S on it, but it's Canva. It is a wonderful, wonderful a platform for creating things. I create my own Zoom backgrounds on it. I create cards on it, video cards for people. And in fact, there's at least one person in the audience member who's gotten a card from me that I created from using Canva. This is so user-friendly. And so what I did is I took a template. Most of the templates are free, not all. I tell my students use a free one. You can change it. I changed the background. I put in the new title. I found the image of the 2 hands with cooperate and connect. This is great because what's the name of the textbook? Interpersonal communication, context, and connection. So this is a great image. I found this on Pixabay. I was able to put that into the site. I included, since I helped to co-author that particular chapter on communication climate, and actually also the one on nonverbal communication, I decided to go ahead and use those 2. And so I was able to just take bits and pieces of information from those 2 chapters, and those are going to be my articles within this particular publication. And I told students I want them to make sure that they include, if you see up here, I love quotations. I wanted them to include a quotation up here that was relevant to the topic, etc. And because it's a synchronous class, I'm actually going to have students come to class during one particular class session. We're going to have a work session so people can get into small groups and help each other and give feedback to each other on putting this together. Again, this is all coming back to our LibreText and using it in a creative, fundamental way that the students are really grappling with the material in it in different ways, shape, and forms. And then wanted to give you an example too. This is an example of what I created, again, for my students to see as a sample of a table of contents. Again, the image there is from, I can't remember if it's Pixabay or Unsplash, one of the 2. And then I put in the different articles and then the chapter in LibreText, the chapter that I'm focusing in on here. And I'm watching time. I think I've got time to go ahead and finish up. Oh, look at that. I was hoping to I was aiming for about 10:30 California time. It's about 10. And Delmar, am I right? It's about 10:30 California time. And I wanted to give time for all of you to open this up for questions, see if you have questions or comments along the way, because I'm sure there's a lot of wonderful experiences out there, and I'd love to learn from you. So I don't know, Delmar, since you're able to see, I'll leave this up for a moment. Are you able to see the questions or comments that are in the chat and could share them out?
Yes, I can. I need to dissect. Hold on a second here. It's a lot of affirmations. Ross asked a question about wallet. I'm not entirely sure with the question mark. I presume he's asking about what that entails, and I don't remember seeing that on your slide.
Okay, one of my slides did on my cover design. I know what Ross is talking about. It was an acronym in the communication climate about how to get feedback to people. And we came up, my co-author and I, we are acronym fans, major fans of acronyms. And students seem to like them. So WALLET stands for, just happen to have this, Ross, wait, avoid attacking back, listen, learn, engage in planning, and take control. So what we did is we took these different principles or suggestions, we turned them into the acronym WALLET, and it resonated. It totally resonated with students. And I've noticed this because I do another activity where I do a 3-week check-in. And again, I have a specific instructions for this, but students write 3 different things they found interesting, exciting, and there's a little bit more to what they have to do. So it turns out to be about a 400 to 500 page or 400 to 500 word excerpt that tells me what they found exciting. And 9 times out of 10, somebody mentions an acronym. So Ross, it's wait, avoid attacking back, listen, learn, engage in planning, and take control.
That's great. Do you have any future plans? Oh, wait, and there is a question. We'll go with Kyle. The test questions you shared are great. Are those chapter test questions shared, or can they be on LibreText?
Kyle, I'm going to wait to answer that because I'm waiting to hear about something on Friday of this week. So I'll be in contact about that. Right now, because I'm very, very cognizant of FERPA and all those rules and regulations. So I'm very careful about having students share unless they're willing to have things published. I will talk with students and see if they're willing to have some of those things published. But everybody stay in touch with me because there may be something that I'll be following up with after this week.
So I will mention, that if you actually host the exercises on the Adapt homework system, which is our accompanying homework system for our textbooks, those come with attributions for each entry, so that if the students decide that they want to openly license it and give it out there, they can actually have their name associated with that as if it were a completely published case. And it's difficult in order to do that on a page of assessments that people want to go for, and it folds into our homework infrastructure.
Okay, great. Well, that's something that I just learned about. So I think that's wonderful. Delmar, I'll be in contact with you after this week for sure. I like it when I'm able to have my students share out their work. I've had some of my senior capstone students actually have things published online through Digital Commons at Humboldt or Cal Poly Humboldt. So a lot of students do like to get their things published. So that's really good to know. Thank you, Delmar. Yeah, I see they're in the chat. I'm going to be copying that myself. So you'll hear from me. Any other questions or comments for the good of the cause?
I always find it interesting talking to instructors that teach in prisons, because it appears that every prison has its own unique rules, regulations, and things off here. You mentioned that you had just gotten a single chapter from your book that you'd used. Was there a reason why you did that instead of the entire book? And if you wanted to use the entire book, would you be allowed to do so?
Okay, those are really good questions. Let me address the second one first. Because I actually am using a different LibreText, the wrench book. I've been using that one with the prisoners in the past because it was published. It was a lot of material for my students to try to digest, and they didn't have the resources to check out other things that would go along with it. And so we are able to use full textbooks in the prisons. The reason I used only one chapter is, unfortunately, the publication of the OER that I helped co-author, the one for interpersonal, it came out too late. And so I wasn't able to, because they'd already had been using the other book. I had to get my book request in. I went ahead with that book because I wanted to make sure that they had something there, because it takes a lot of time and effort. That's one of the challenges of teaching correspondence. Sometimes there's like a 2 to 3 week lag time between me sending something out and then beginning to get things back. So that was a challenge. Sometimes there'd be lockdowns, et cetera, where materials just couldn't get out to the students. So the reason I chose the one is that I was able to, on my own, I downloaded it and I sent it in as a PDF myself to the College of the Redwoods up in Crescent City. So I called it an article. That's why I called it an article. And I wanted to try it out, especially because communication climate wasn't really covered by the regular textbook that I'd been using. And I want to tell you, the reaction from the students, it was like night and day in terms of the different writing styles. I think that the one that we created, but we didn't get out in time, I think it would fit the students that I have a little bit better. So those are the answers to the 2 questions. And the students were, I did get a few different requests from students, as you know, that are really interested in trying to get more LibreText available at the library there at Pelican Bay. So hopefully that will become something that happens in the future. Now, what's interesting is I also teach for another correctional education program. It's an upper division, so I don't use this textbook. It's through Ashland University, which is back east in Ashland, Ohio. They have a correctional education program, and I've been teaching for them for several years. It's online, although not Wi-Fi, but it's online, and we use a different textbook because it is upper division. So again, you're absolutely right. It depends upon the program itself, what it allows and doesn't allow. And so I'm very, very careful with what I do to abide by the rules and regulations of each prison system.
And if you were able to print up your books for your students, would they be able to keep the books, or do they have to give the books back?
My understanding is they have to give the books back. And so, but I could send an email up there. I know things may be changing up at Pelican Bay. If I were to want to use parts of the book at Ashland University, I still probably could use parts of the book, but they have an upper division book because it's at that level. But that's a good question. I'll try to find out the exact answer, but my impression is they have to give the books back.
Yeah, it's just that it's gotten a lot cheaper switching to OER. We're working with other campuses for getting books into prisons. And my big interest is so that the students would be able to keep the books and use it and write on it and being able to consume it in the way that they would be if they were on campus. And then having them to return the books, I think significantly reduces that impact. But anyways, Russ had
let me say something really fast about that, because I'm totally with you. And what I would find exciting is if they could keep the books. And back in the dark ages, when I was a student, we'd actually write in the margins and highlight. I would love to see that turned in, scanned, sent to me, so I could see what they're seeing at the moment they're reading something and their initial reaction to something, in addition to some of the more formal writing. That would be good information for me as an instructor to better tailor make things for my students. So that would be a really neat thing to do, because they can take the materials from the students, they scan them up in Crescent City, and they send them to me. That material would then go back to the student, but I don't know if they would keep it to the end of the semester. That's the only thing.
Okay. I think one last question here. Ross also mentioned, do you find any irony in teaching IP communications asynchronously? Necessary for Pelican Bay, of course. I'm not sure if I fully get that question, but I think you guys do.
I think I get it. I'm going to just be very honest here during my presentation. It is very challenging to teach an interpersonal communication class online asynchronously. I wanted to share with you my Cal Poly Humboldt class, which is synchronous. My gosh, I don't take attendance. I tell them I don't take attendance, but they all show up. But what I'm getting is they love to talk about the material in the book. And I bring in bits and pieces of it. So my students are really engaging with it because I don't have an attendance policy in my synchronous class, but they come. I wish I could teach the course synchronously at College of the Redwoods. I'll be perfectly honest about that. I think it does make a difference. I'm so used to teaching online, as some of you know, I've taught online before COVID hit, and I love teaching online. I think I do get a lot of information. So for example, Delmar's right there. I can see him nodding, I'm looking, etc. All that. I'm getting that interpersonal communication. With an asynchronous class that's totally asynchronous, I'm not getting that feel. So I do prefer the synchronous. Of course, with the prisoners, there wasn't much I could do. So what I would do for my feedback is, it was almost like I was writing them short little letters. I didn't put it in handwriting. I still typed it out because I want to keep that professional distance there. But I would say, dear so-and-so, and then I'd have a couple of paragraphs there, keep up the good work. So I tried to make my responses seem a little bit more like a letter in response. So maybe in a way, I kind of tried to my best of my ability to make that correspondence class as letter friendly as possible. So great question, Ross. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a couple of quotes to end my presentation with before you wrap up things.
It appears that there are no more questions in the chat, so feel free to continue.
I would love, if any of you are interested, Delmar, is my contact information somewhere on the website? I'm not sure if it is, but if anybody is interested, actually, you know what I could do? Let me go ahead, since I'm not screen sharing anymore. I'm going to put my email in. If anybody wants to email me and ask or share information, I do have a lot of very specific information about my assignments, a lot more than what I shared with you. But I'd be glad to share that with you. I'm always into talking about how to make things user-friendly for students. So my email now is in the chat if you want to copy and paste it. But I want to go ahead and end my presentation with a couple of quotations and a thank you. One way that I end my emails many times is with quotations. I am a quotation fanatic. And so there's one by somebody you might not expect me to quote a lot, but I like this particular one. Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. And this is a quotation from Audrey Hepburn. And I really like this because I think with the interpersonal communication OER that we're using now, I think that students can connect with it. That, yeah, this person had this experience and I had this experience. And another thing, by the way, that I forgot to say earlier is that students like how current our OER is, that our examples are just happening now. And so they feel like anything is possible, I'm possible. And I want to end then with a quotation, another one from a very different person. Without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. This was said by Benjamin Franklin. And I think this is so true. And what I'm very happy with is, from my beginnings as a student, I'll go ahead and share the decade, a student through the 1970s, all the way until being a professor here in the 2020s. My God, that's a long period of time. I have seen the opportunities for students and their education grow. And I think LibreText, the OER platform, really helps support that growth of our students. It's something that I was really hoping to see in my lifetime. And I'm almost going to be teary-eyed here. I'm so happy that I have seen this progress, that there was this continual growth, that it achieved and provided success in providing open educational resources to our students. So I'm going to end with this. I want to thank LibreText for the LibreText philosophy. the LibreText platform, and the LibreText professional staff who are here to help all of us achieve our goals and the goals we have for our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And we appreciate your kind words.
Everybody, have a great day.